Dear guests, friends and colleagues, welcome to the Faculty of Economics and Business of the University of Belgrade, the institution with 86 years long tradition and graduates for whom we can proudly say to be in many leadership positions in Serbia and abroad. For us, it is a special privilege to have the opportunity to host the chairman of the board of directors of the Intesa Sanpaolo Group, Professor Gian Maria Gros-Pietro, who will give us exclusive lecture entitled Economic Potential of the Western Balkans after taking a part in Serbia-Italy Business Forum earlier today. Dear Professor, thank you very much for honoring us and taking the time to be our dear guest during your stay in Serbia and Belgrade. Impressive professorial work at prestigious universities in Italy, accompanied with rich experience in numerous world-famous companies in the sphere of finance, business, and banking, have truly marked his career. Until now, Professor Gros-Pietro has been the head of many remarkable and leading companies and organizations. To mention a few, he is currently the chairman of the board of directors of Intesa Sanpaolo, also the board of directors of Luis Università Guido Carli, member of the committee of the Italian Banking Association and of ABI Servizi. He chairs the committee of market operators and investors at Consob and is a member of the corporate governance committee of Borsa Italiana. He was the lead independent director of Edison, independent director of Fiat, independent director of Caltagirone, chair of Atlantia, chair of Eni, chair of IRI. Also, he was a member of the Advisory and Guarantee Committee for Privatization established by the Ministry of Treasury of the Republic of Italy. He was full professor of business economics at the University of Turin from 1980 until 2004, and at Luis University of Rome, where he founded and directed the Department of Economic and Business Science. Also, he was the director of the Institute of Economic Research on Firms and Growth, the main body of the CNR, the Italian National Research Council, in the economic field. On behalf of the Faculty of Economics and Business, I would like to present a certificate of appreciation to Professor Gian Maria Gros-Pietro for giving us the honor of hosting his exclusive lecture and sharing his wealth of knowledge and expert views with business and academic society in Serbia. Professor, I would like you to join me to present this certificate to you. Please, Professor, the floor is yours, and we cannot wait to hear your lecture.
Well, as you can understand, for me is a great day now to receive this honor from the University of Belgrade. Thank you for this honor, and thank you for the opportunity of talking about what is happening today in the economic and financial world, and especially as long as it regards the Western Balkans economic potential. As you can understand from what has been said, I have been a professor. Now I am a banker. But my mind is still the one of the professor. And I like to think of what happened and try to understand what is the underlying movements, the rock bed of the economic fluctuations. The more general way of saying it is that we are in a moment, or in an historical moment, when the power is shifting again. Once the power was linked to the property of the control of territory. Then the power and the richness was linked to mercantile activity. And from mercantile activity, it passed to industry, manufacturing. And when the manufacturers and industrialists thought to be in power of the developed societies, they were no longer in that position, because the power was shifting to finance. At the end of the 19th century, finance was becoming more important. But during the 20th century, industrialists, or the first half of the 20th century, industrialists still were convinced that there was the power, while the power was in finance. At the end of the 20th century and today, finance is still considered the powerful driving activity, while the real power is in information. Billions of human beings devote hours of their daily activity in using a telephone or a tablet, where they digit at their own expenses personal data. A singular personal data has no value, but billions of personal data give an enormous value to those who are able to manage them, to elaborate them with artificial intelligence, and to give information of no value because they are public ones on the network to billions of human beings, influencing them, influencing their spending decisions, their political decisions, their desires as well. And so there is the real power. So I am a representative of a financial institution which is part of this world and is seeing the real power shifting toward information. I had the opportunity a week ago to talk with Verena Ross, which is the chair of the European Authority, ESMA, European Securities and Market Authority. And I told her that what they are doing, trying to put into discipline financial activity, is in some way out of their intentions, moving financial activity outside the financial industry toward territories which are not regulated, not supervised, like cryptocurrencies and so on. I'm not developing more about that. Are we reacting to this? Yes, we are reacting, but this is the vision that you have to keep in mind in order to understand what is happening in the financial world. For instance, the fight of central banks against inflation. The world is experiencing today an inflation which started after pandemic. So the interruption for sanitary reasons of productions in different times in different areas of the world. So disruption not only of the producing capacity, but of the international supply chains interruption of transportation, no containers available, and so on. And then the war arrived, and other interruptions from a lack of supply following an increase in prices. That was the real start of inflation. And you can easily understand that rising rates has no effect against this origin of the inflation. Because to remedy the lack of supply, there is only one type of medicine: investments. Directed investments, selective investments. Investments that, of course, cannot be the result of a financial supervisor or a financial regulator. Government can influence this kind of investment, or industrial structures, big industrial structures. But the financial authorities have only one tool. It is rates. It is like a fire brigade which is asked to stop a fire, but not a fire of wood, a fire of an electrical cabin. But they only have water, and they start to put water into the electrical cabin. This is only make damage, but it do not stop the fire. So that is the negative side of what is happening. The other side is that you need badly investment and directed investment. What can do financial industry in that direction? The financial industry can offer two kinds of supply: finance or financing, and I would say advice. Address the investment in the right direction. In the back of the vision, there is climate change. This is a long-term goal, but a goal that you have to address now, because time is very short. So, banking industry traditionally was required to operate the transmission of the monetary policy of the central bank. This is no longer enough. It is needed still, but not enough. You have to add an address to investors in the right directions, in the directions that can address the climate change and the lack of supply. So that is very challenging, but very interesting for people who are working in the financial industry. And I would say is really motivating. If you want to do something real, useful for the world of today, you have to help this process of moving capital, saving of the normal people who are non-active into deposits. Deposits are inertial. Move them toward investments which are progressive. So, let me go to Western Balkans economic potential. Into this picture, what are the positions of Balkans? And I must say that I am very positive about the situation of Balkans. these are the chapters. Macroeconomic trends, Western Balkans outlook, Western Balkan financial services market, structure and potentialities. This is very close to the bank for which I am here today. Structural elements and possible development enables. Well, let me start. I always try to look at positive elements in a situation. And I must say that in these months, the positive elements are more frequent and more important than it was predicted. 2133 started with some good news on energy issues, China and international trade. The price of natural gas fallen. Let me comment. The price of natural gas in Europe was so high as an effect of a strong, of a bad market structure. The TTF, title transfer facility, a speculation structure. The price cap on that structure has worked. It seemed impossible. How can you compel the seller to sell to a price he doesn't like? It is easy. Don't buy. And he will change his mind. And now the price, you remember the price was 307 in the last summer. Now is below 50, 40. So that is a big change. At global level, the energy shock now looks less severe than initially expected for several reasons. There is also the sanctions. The Russian oil trades at a much lower price than Brent or WTI. There was a negative spread of about USD 30 per barrel. This means another thing, that there is a very sharp difference of energy between Europe and the United States. So this is a problem for Europe. I have just the occasion of hearing Mr. Michael Pompeo last Friday. He was in Milan, and he said, do not think that in the future Europe will continue to have low-cost energy like it was from Russia, nor at the present price from United States LNG, because in the United States, I don't know if it is true, but this is what he said, in the United States it's very difficult to increase or to maintain production, because environmental movements, it is difficult to make holes, difficult to make pipelines and so on. That is to say, Europe will no longer be competitive with the United States because we will have energy at a lower price. And indeed, very high consuming energy industries like chemicals, for instance, are moving, European companies are moving their plants from Europe to United States. So the future is into the renewable sources. And that is one of the main activities that finance has to support, the movement toward sustainable sources. Of course, in the long term, there is the climate change, but it is difficult to convince Mr. Mike Pompeo to be sensible to this aspect. But the time will come, so we must move now. We must increase investments in that direction. And come to West Balkans. West Balkans are in a good positions, naturally, for possible sources for themselves of renewable sources. Well, we have had winter temperature where milder household reduced energy consumption. There is an old instrument, an old tool, elasticity of demand. It's still there, it's still working. If price increases, consumption will decrease. Government interventions. Additional good news, removal of lockdown measures in China, restart of production, where GDP will move. On the other side, China will restart in consuming oil and gas. And so there will be competition from China towards European consumption. All international trade current volumes are well above pre-pandemic levels. And so the world is restarting to work. Do not forget that one of the effects of the pandemic has been the disruption of all supply chains. That means that the supply chains will restart not with the same structure that they had before. So there is a change, a redistribution of world deployment of the industrial activity. That is another task for finance. You have to finance new investments, the movement of placements, but of course, first of all, you have to advise your clients what to do, where to do, and so on, and how to finance it. International trade is again an engine of the world development. There is a movement toward a redistribution of deployment of industrial activities, shorter supply chains, less vulnerable supply chains, reshoring or friendshoring, to have supply from closer situations or friendly situations. I would say closer and friendly. That is the photography of the gas price. The TTF is, you see this peak. This peak is not possible if should be not possible if it should if it would do to physical factors. This is only speculation that make this kind of movement. But when you go to physical movements, that is world trade, you see the pandemic effect, the dip in the second quarter of 2020, and the coming back of production. You see the yellow line is Asia. Asia is, of course, the continent of the future. It has been 5 centuries ago the continent of the past. Asia is taking again the place it deserves, being the most populated continent on the earth. The blue line is the world line is Americas, the black line is Euro, and the orange line is Africa. Africa is the continent of the future, is the continent which is growing faster, both as population and as economic activity. So it is the place, you see there, where opportunities are not yet taken. So it is the great opportunity for investment. Again, what does a bank? What should do a bank for their clients? Information, advice, and financing. That I would like to attract some of you to work with us. And let me say that these are the real problem for 8 billion of human persons. These are the problems. Please join to help them. Short-term uncertainties ahead, but a strengthening of the recovery is expected this year in 2024. So let me say another thing. Don't take for given what you are given by predictors. Predicting is very difficult as far as the future is concerned. Good predictions are the one which explain why in the past what happened was not what it was predicted. That is what the economists do quite well. But as far to predict what will really happen is much more difficult. For instance, it was largely predicted. I'm more familiar with the Italian data that the GDP in 2022 should be negative. Then it was corrected in constant. Then further correction increase. And the final increase was 3.8, a multiple of the past movements. What is happening now for this year was well, a recession for the first quarter or for the first half. And then it seems that we will not have a recession in Europe. But of course, we are experiencing some problems, and I am not touching this aspect. We need more economic policy, European economic policy in this continent. Of course, there are political difficulties. It is difficult to make political economic policy in a continent where you have different states with different balances, different fiscal policies, and so on. I understand. But the fact is that it is important that every country does what it can do itself, and then to support a possible political policy. That is why I mention this in this moment, because the cooperation within the Western Balkans, and in particular Republic of Serbia and Italy, is a positive fact, is a natural fact. We are two countries very close, we are very similar structures, we are some complementarity, and so we can do a part of a European political economy or economic policy in two countries as a part of a possible future, more powerful continental economic policy. In the future, not far future, because the Western Balkans are on the path to join EU. I do not go deeply into the question because I'm sure that you know it better than me. But a positive aspect is that Serbia is a candidate country since 2012. The negotiations are in process. 22 chapters were opened, 2 are previously closed. Maybe Draginja could say much better than me, but also other countries are all the other countries are candidates with different levels of achievement, but we can expect that we will have a common policy. And what is important is that the real picture is the Mediterranean Sea. Mediterranean Sea is an area of future. I told before that Africa is the continent which is growing faster. And between Europe and Africa, there is the Mediterranean Sea. The Mediterranean Sea is also between Far East and Northern Europe through the Suez Canal. So it is a very, very important economic area. And there is also structural differences between the northern and the southern shore. Differences in per capita production, per capita GDP, cost of labor, and so on. There are the structural differences that traditionally move international trade, exchange between countries with different basic elements. So, West Balkans are in a good position to intercept opportunities stemming from the shortening of global value chains. So, it is not only the fact that we could grow the commerce between Europe and Africa, especially North Africa. Remember that North Africa means a good shore with very high activity and very high increase of population, but at south of this shore there is a desert which is perfect for production of energy. That means energy production, electricity production from Africa to export sustainable energy to Europe, and so on. You can export it through electric cables, through hydrogen, and so on. Different kind of exchange will be experienced. So, look at what happens in the Balkans, in the Western Balkans. They are resilient. You see different situation, of course, between Serbia, North Macedonia, Montenegro, Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Western Balkans. But what is common of these countries, you see, of course, the change of real GDP growth. You see that their increase are always positive for all of them. That is not the same for the rest of Europe. This is a very strong picture that gives a measure of the potential that the Western Balkans have compared to the rest of Europe, or in collaboration with the rest of Europe. One of these potential is in the high quality of persons. I am not talking of imagination. I am talking of experience of our bank here in Serbia. We have excellent persons in our bank, and we are very satisfied of these persons. And we think that these persons will be able to support a more quickly development of this country. Let me say that we are the biggest bank of this country. We are very proud of this, and we will make our best, also financing, for improve this position, and we want to get persons to work with us. We think that this is a target which deserves all of our energies. Satisfactory fiscal policy indicators. Public debt dynamics. You see the public debt is decreasing a percentage of GDP. The fiscal deficit is quite strong in some countries, but as you see, Serbia, which is on the right, is in a good position. The fiscal deficit has been in the last year 3.3, which is quite sustainable. Let's go to the current account deficit, share of GDP. Here you look immediately that Serbia is in a good position. Of course, 6.9 deficit is not good, but this is 2022. It is the year when we had the peak of energy prices. We will move out of this situation. If you look at the energy import dependency, you see that Serbia is at 30%, while the average of EU 27 is 60%, the double. So Serbia is in an advantageous position, and it can improve because there are a number of possibilities of sustainable energy. And in fact, foreign direct investment inflow is positive. You see as percentage of GDP it increased from 5.1 to 6.7, and the foreign exchange reserves give for Serbia, for instance, 29.5% of the GDP. So the reserves are quite good. This country has the possibility of financing important investment without any risk. Okay. Let's go to bring inflation down. Central bank have tightened monetary conditions. I have already taken this argument to the fact that they are using water because it is the only tool they have. Let me add something in defense of the central banks. The original inflation was an accident, a pandemic and a war. Raising the rates is not able to resolve the situation. But when inflation starts, it can transform itself in a self-sustaining process with the circle between salaries and prices. And there, the central banks are trying to stop it. And the rates are a good instrument in that direction. But of course, if there is still at work the original shock, that is reduction of supply of cereals, for instance, not only of energy, and the other side, you are trying to stop with the rates, the fight is difficult. You see that there is already a movement in consumer price index. that is a very good news. Uh, let me say, I suppose that you understand very easily, that if you have an input coming from energy, essentially, prices of energy goes 300% higher, but they translate into the rest of the price system of prices gradually. So when you see that TTF goes down, the price of gas goes down, you see the core inflation that continues to grow. Add that, the core inflation is the index that the central banks, or the Central Bank of Europe is considering, because it is alarming. It is inside the system, the economic system. But this is an effect of a permeation of the first movement into the system of prices. That means that it is necessary to try to control the inflation process, but the fact that core inflation is going in a different way compared to the prices of energy is an effect that you could have expected. Is not out the possibilities. Rising interest. You see different situations, different dynamics. The blue line in the left representation is Albania. The green light is Serbia. The orange light is Bosnia. And you see that the peak is in 2022, but the movement and the sharpness of the movement are different. Deposits of the private sector change. You see the deposits, you have a strong decrease after the middle of the 2022, it is the start of the war, practically. But there is a leveling off started in this year and forecasted for 2024. And the prospects for credit quality remain good. Look at Serbia, which is on the right of the representation. Serbia has had in December 21 a level of 3.5 nearly, and December 22, 3%. 3% is quite good. It's quite good compared to the European Union. I don't know what Darko thinks. Now, financial deepening shows significant room for growth. Let me be a banker in this moment, just a banker. What is a country that you like to be in? It is a country with a safe situation, financial situation, but with not a deep presence of the banking activity compared to the GDP, because there is wide room for growing. That is Serbia. A safe, a sound situation of banking industry, but a large room for developing. So we want to be here, we want to stay here, we want to invest here, we want to grow here, and we want possible young people to join us. Financial deepening is because the loan to GDP ratios are modest in Western Balkans and in Serbia as well. if you compare to Italy, you see that in Italy we had in 2019 107% of deposits to GDP and 113 in 2022, compared to Serbia about 47%. So that is the prospect of growth that you can expect in the next years. Join us, because this is a situation when there will be room for satisfaction and careers. I am joking. I'm not joking about the perspective. I know that what you want for your future is not only to be in a growing activity, you want personal satisfaction, proudness over your future position, and good condition of possibility of modeling the use of your time between the work and family. And we are working in the direction. Financial inclusion is strongly improving. So you see, of course, Serbia is well ahead of Albania and Bosnia and Herzegovina as long as the percentage of account of adults with account are in the countries. So also this says that there is room for growing for a banking activity. Euroization. Of course, Serbia is on the way to be part of the Eurozone, and this will be, in my opinion, I suppose also in your opinion, this will be an improvement. Why I can say that? Because euro is a currency at the world level, very stable, very well managed, with no fluctuations, and which gives a sound way of making trade with the rest of the world. And so that will even ease the future of a country like Serbia, where there is a very, very good quality of the human capital, if I can use this definition. And so this human capital deserves good instruments. You see the share of foreign currency denominated loans and deposits, mainly euro, that remains high, particularly in Serbia, but slightly decreasing in the last few years. I would say that this picture says that Serbian population would like to use euro in the next future, near future. Lending growth, more resilient for households. The loan breakdown is fairly distributed between retail and corporate, with loan deposit ratio at a comfortable level, below 100%. So the Serbian banks are good. They are safe. They do not lend money in a larger quantity than they receive from deposits. The growth dynamic reflects the cyclical trend, with the more pronounced deceleration for corporate in the last months. That is not so positive signal. So we need that banks are open to support further economic development. But the loan performance in Serbia was stronger than the Western Balkan average. So this is a good situation. and another signal that Serbia is in a picture of the general situation of the Western Balkans, which is positive. Serbia is in a particularly positive situation. Let's we go to household standards of living, which is improving. Unemployment rates fell in all countries. Wages increased to offset the real income decline due to inflation. That is an adjustment. Employment prospects are solid. Some challenges loom. Brain drain. So this is the situation. Good human capital, increasing, I would say, way of living and salaries, wages, but like brain drain is a risk. How to take this risk? The only way is increasing wages, increasing capacity of the positions to pay higher salaries. And so we must prepare. You see the average wages, you compare Serbia, Montenegro, Macedonia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Albania, and you see the orange is 2022 and the blue is 25. Of course, there are 17 years between, so the increase has been very fast, and you see is that if you look at the increase, Serbia is at the second place after Montenegro. Montenegro is not comparable to Serbia as an economic power. I am going very fast. European Green Agenda investment will need sophisticated financial services. I would deserve some more time, attention to this slide, because we are, as always happens, we pose more attention to what is urgent compared to what is important. But even if some problems like a pandemic and war and so on, inflation, are extremely urgent, the climate change is much, much more important. And so we have to deal with it. In this slide, there is some actions which are commented, but I will not comment them, each of them, because the problem is general, and you cannot solve it with single actions. We know that the problem of climate change is a world problem. You cannot solve it if China and India will not join. If Africa will develop by burning fossil combustion elements. But at the same time, some movement must be made as soon as possible. And the areas, the economic areas that can do that can lead the movement, are the most developed ones, like Europe. Europe is prepared. Europe must experience. Europe must develop something that demonstrates which is working, which is competitive, and that in the middle term will be an element of competitiveness. So the fact that Europe could accept a discipline in the usage of different sources of energy would become an element of competitiveness in the middle term. And in the shorter term, it will become an element of independence. That is very important. That is what, in my opinion, we should move rapidly in that direction that has been comprises the Sofia Declaration, the Regional Action Plan in October 2021, the Action Plan, and the Serbia that was among the first countries in European community to establish a green bond framework and finance green eligible projects. Let me say that a bank or a financial institution, but especially a bank, has a precise responsibility in this direction, because the bank has some tasks. One is the transmission of the monetary policy of the central bank. The central bank take an extreme situation, which is the negative rates in the last years. The central bank gives the money to the banks at a negative price. It is a gift? No, because they say, I give you money at a negative price on a condition that you have to lend it to a real activity. And you take on your shoulder the risk of insolvency of the borrower. That is a function that the banks have. And that will remain, but the other ones will be, and the other most important, will be advise the investor, the borrower, how to invest, where to go, what kind of energy, for instance, develop, what kind of transmission, what kind of storage, what kind of system of production, transmission, and storage of new energy, which new energy, and so on. That is, to myself, is a really stimulating type of profession to be involved in, because that is the future of humanity. If we fail in solving this problem, I will not say what will be the exit. So, here you see a number of programs that are already being posed in action. Others will follow. What we are doing as a bank is, for instance, to place on the market green bonds, to lend money to companies, industrial companies, at a rate which is conditioned to the greenness, let me say, to the greenness of their investments. That is the only way that we can get the result. Remember that no environmental objective could be really reached if it is not socially sustainable. And if it is not sustainable economically, it will not sustainable also socially. Do you remember the Gilets jaunes in France? The movement was developed by a small increase in the price of the gas oil, the carburant for tractors. Remember, you cannot try to force movements which are not socially sustainable. So you need banks and financing operators to try different solutions and get out which are working, which are sustainable, which are so profitable, because profitability is a part of social sustainability. And that is, in my opinion, a fascinating activity. Well, the main topics are like climate action, that is decarbonization, energy efficiency, green industries. There are a number of technicalities, and this is really fascinating. We need to enroll in the banking system some physics, some person which are expert of this kind of knowledge. Circular economy, of course, there is not only the problem of energy, there is the problem of natural resources. In order not to transform resources into products and into waste, but recycle them. This needs for having products that can be recycled, you have to redesign products, and probably you could use different resources, natural resources, to produce redesigned products with different plants, different logistics, and reverse logistics to retake the used material. That means an immense amount of investments. From one side, it means then the financial system is heavily involved. From the other side, that means that you have to think of a world completely different, with different usage of raw materials, different plants of production, different logistics, different reverse logistics, a world that has to be completely redesigned. And of course, you have approach and the new situation with experiments, the pollution environment, protecting and investing biodiversity and ecosystem, and sustainable food. Okay, we have also to change our eating habits. I am approaching the conclusion of my presentation. So agribusiness will be an enabling sector thanks to its crucial contribution to the Western Balkan economy. I'm talking of Western Balkan economy, Western Balkans economy, because I am here. But that is good for every territory. In Italy, we are investing in agribusiness. We have created a division of our bank which is operating in agribusiness, because that will be an activity of the future. And of course, in a territory like Serbia, which is producing excellent food elements, revising the process of producing these elements is very important. Of course, you have to take into consideration the land productivity, but on the other side, the potential of agribusiness in development of green financial products. There will be, you know that there is an increasing sensibility of the consumers toward the quality of what they buy and they eat. You look in Italy at present, the agricultural output is only 2% of GDP. In Serbia, it is already 6%. That is good. On the other side, the employees in agriculture in Italy are 4%. 4% of employees produce only 2% of the GDP. That means that their productivity is half of the average on the Italian system. And in Serbia, 7% of the employees produce 6% of agricultural, 15%, excuse me. 15% of employees produce 6% of GDP. That means that also in Serbia there is a problem of agricultural productivity, and this is one that has to be faced. Faced means that you have to do something, that you have to invest, that you have to advise your clients how to produce better. Then we come to FinTech. FinTech is one of the effects of what I was saying at the beginning of my presentation, that is information. Information is becoming the powerful segment of the future society. And it is already of the present society. If you think who are the richest person in this moment, Bezos, Zucker, Musk, and so on. All people that are working on information technology. Western Balkans have still to explore the potential of fintech services. And in this way, I think that our bank can be useful. We are investing deeply to propose to our clients in Italy a digital bank. We have taken participation into Thought Machine, which is one of the more advanced operators in this direction, and we will be, when we will have obtained a well-working system in Italy, we will extend it to the international subsidiary banks division, and of course in Serbia by first. Moving toward fintech means at least two things. You have to offer good products to the clients, but you have to help them to learn how to use them. You have to make them safe, because they are dangerous. They are exposed to hackers. So you have to find what kind of these segments of fintech, payments, cryptocurrency, middleware, e-commerce, crowdfunding, insurtech, they are all in this column, but they are quite different among them. Cryptocurrency is not a problem, not a product, is a Ponzi system. Cryptocurrencies are non-existent elements which can be sold to people who know that they do not exist, but they hope to sell them with at a higher price before that their non-existence become evident. Not always they are able to do that. So cryptocurrencies, in my opinion, will be finally regulated, will disappear, will be replaced by central bank digital currencies. And in that direction, banks have to operate in order to offer to their client something which is honest, first of all, safe, easy to use, and protected. But to do all that, you have to invest. Invest first in persons and then in technology. Both. They have to do both, but persons become before technology, because you need persons to choose the technology, to implement it, to develop it, and to offer and make it work for the clients. I am quite finished. Conclusions. Notwithstanding the current short-term uncertainties, a strengthening of the recovery is expected this year and in 2024. I read it because I am very convinced that these are the right words for this year and for the next year, with economic growth of Western Balkans outpacing that of Western European countries. This is sure. The recent experience tells us that the Western Balkans will grow more rapidly than the European Union. I want to remember the reasons why. The position of the Mediterranean, the situation, the difference of Europe compared to Africa, the position, the redeployment of the world distribution of the manufacturing and servicing activity. All this, in my opinion, in the opinion of our experts, means that there will be a relaunch of the European growth, and of course the Western Balkans will be in an advantage position. There will be a progress towards EU accession that would boost the credit profiles, will attract foreign direct investments, that will add propellant to the local development. Position in the Mediterranean, I already said. The banking aggregates are expected to grow. I showed before that the banking activity in these countries is less developed compared to GDP. So, of course, there will be an alignment. So you will combine the fact that the GDP will grow more rapidly than in Europe, and that the percentage of banking activity to GDP will move toward aligning to the European average. There will be banking aggregates contribution to GDP improved. This way, a further room for growth. And there will be, of course, good news for all of you, younger people, an improvement of labor market conditions. So I conclude this presentation, first of all, by thanking for the opportunity of making it, for the hospitality that you give to me, for the honor that you make to me, and to the participants for their attention. You have been very keen. I have seen you very patient. Thank you.